My brothers and sisters, let me tell you something very important. If you live your life trying to make everyone happy, you will die tired and disappointed. You will lose your peace, your energy, and eventually yourself. The problem is not that people expect too much from you. The problem is that you believe you owe everyone an explanation, an approval, and a version of yourself that pleases them. That belief is exhausting you, and today we need to fix it. My brothers and sisters, this is a truth that many people understand intellectually but fail to live by emotionally. Allah did not create you to spend your life chasing people's approval. He did not design your heart to carry the weight of everyone's expectations, opinions, moods, and demands. That burden is crushing, and that is why so many people feel constantly tired, mentally drained, and spiritually empty, even when they appear successful on the outside. Think carefully. From the moment you wake up, how much of your energy is spent worrying about what people will say, how they will react, or whether they will be disappointed. You adjust your words, your decisions, your lifestyle, even your beliefs sometimes, just to avoid criticism or rejection. And yet, despite all this effort, you are still not at peace. That should tell you something important. You are trying to win a game that cannot be won. People are never fully satisfied. This is not an insult, it is human nature. If you help someone today, they may thank you, but tomorrow they may expect more. If you sacrifice for them, they may appreciate it briefly, then normalize it, then feel entitled to it. If you change yourself to make them happy, they will eventually want you to change again. So if your purpose in life is to keep people pleased, you will spend your entire life running, adjusting, apologizing, and explaining yourself until you collapse from exhaustion. Allah, in His mercy, never asked this from you. He never told you to live for people. He never said your worth depends on how many people approve of you. Your purpose is clear and simple, though living it requires courage. To worship Allah, to obey Him to the best of your ability, and to live with sincerity and integrity. When you understand this properly, something powerful happens inside you. The noise of people's opinions starts to fade, and a heavy burden lifts from your heart. Many people confuse pleasing Allah with pleasing people. They think being kind means saying yes to everything. They think patience means tolerating constant disrespect. They think good character means sacrificing themselves until there is nothing left. This is not Islam. Islam is balanced. Islam protects the heart. Islam does not teach you to destroy yourself to keep others comfortable. Even the Prophet, peace be upon him, faced criticism, rejection, and hostility. If the goal was to please people, he would have failed by worldly standards. But his goal was Allah, and that is why his legacy remains untouchable. Ask yourself honestly, how many decisions in your life are driven by fear of people rather than consciousness of Allah? Fear of being judged, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being talked about, fear of being labeled selfish, rude, or difficult. That fear slowly turns into exhaustion because your soul was not created to live in fear of creation. It was created to find peace in connection with the Creator. The exhaustion you feel is not random. It is a warning sign. It is your heart telling you that you are carrying a responsibility that does not belong to you. You are trying to manage people's emotions, expectations, and reactions. That is impossible. You cannot control how people feel about you, no matter how hard you try. Once you accept this reality, you stop wasting energy on what is beyond your control and redirect it toward what actually matters. When you shift your focus to pleasing Allah, your life does not become perfect, but it becomes lighter. You still care about people, but you are no longer controlled by them. You still do good, but you no longer destroy yourself in the process. You learn that being firm is not cruelty, and saying no is not disobedience to Allah. Sometimes the most sincere act of worship is choosing truth over approval. Some people will not like this change in you. Be prepared for that. When you stop over-explaining, over-giving, and over-apologizing, those who benefited from your exhaustion may feel uncomfortable. They may accuse you of changing, becoming cold, or thinking too highly of yourself. Do not let that shake you. Growth often looks like arrogance to those who are comfortable with your silence and sacrifice. Remember this clearly. Your value does not increase when people praise you, and it does not decrease when they criticize you. Your value was given to you by Allah, and no human being can take that away. The moment you internalize this, you stop living reactively. You stop letting every comment, message, or opinion disturb your heart. You become grounded, stable, and calm, not because life is easy, but because your foundation is strong. Allah knows your intentions even when people misunderstand you. He sees your sincerity even when people question it. He rewards your patience even when no one thanks you. When you truly believe this, you no longer feel the need to perform for people. You live honestly, worship quietly, and trust deeply. That trust is where peace begins. So remind yourself daily, I was not created to please people, I was created to please Allah. Everything else falls into place when this truth becomes the center of your life. My brothers and sisters, one of the biggest reasons people remain exhausted, anxious, and unsettled is because they are chasing something that does not stand still. People's approval is not fixed. It is not stable. It moves, shifts, and changes depending on mood, benefit, circumstances, and convenience. If your peace depends on it, your peace will never last. Let us be very clear and very honest. Today someone praises you. Tomorrow the same person may criticize you. Today you are admired for your patience. Tomorrow you are resented for setting a boundary. Today you are loved because you give. Tomorrow you are disliked because you stop giving. This is not because you suddenly became a bad person. It is because approval was never about you in the first place. It was about how useful you were to them at that moment. Many people live their entire lives adjusting themselves to match expectations. They speak differently depending on who is in front of them. They change opinions to avoid disagreement. They suppress their values to avoid conflict. And they tell themselves, I just want peace. But what they are actually doing is trading long-term peace for short-term comfort. That comfort never lasts because the rules keep changing. People's approval depends on conditions. As long as you meet those conditions, you are accepted. The moment you fail to meet them, the approval disappears. That should already tell you something important. Anything conditional is unreliable. If someone only respects you when you agree with them, that is not respect. If someone only loves you when you serve them, that is not love. If someone only supports you when it costs them nothing, that is not loyalty. When you build your identity on approval, you become fragile. Every comment shakes you. Every criticism stays with you longer than it should. Every silence feels like rejection. That is not because you are weak. It is because you placed your worth in the wrong hands. Human beings were never meant to carry that responsibility for each other. Allah, in His wisdom, freed you from this trap. He did not make your success dependent on people liking you. He did not tell you to shape your life around their reactions. He told you to act with sincerity, justice, and consciousness of Him. That is it. Whether people applaud or criticize after that is not your concern. When you forget this, you start performing instead of living. Look at how exhausting performance is. You are always alert, always careful, always calculating. You are constantly asking yourself, how will this look? What will they say? Will they misunderstand me? This constant self-monitoring drains the soul. It leaves no room for sincerity because sincerity requires freedom, and freedom cannot exist when approval is your currency. Some people believe that if they just try harder, explain better, or give more, they will finally be accepted fully. This is an illusion. The finish line keeps moving. There will always be someone who thinks you are too much, too little, too slow, too strict, too soft, too different. Trying to silence every voice will leave you voiceless. Understand this deeply. People's reactions say more about them than about you. Their approval is influenced by their insecurities, their expectations, their wounds, and their desires. When you let those reactions define you, you allow other people's inner chaos to dictate your inner state. That is not wisdom. That is surrender. Even the most righteous people were not universally approved of. The prophets, peace be upon them all, were rejected, mocked, and opposed. Not because they lacked character, but because truth challenges comfort. If pleasing people was the measure of correctness, then falsehood would win every time. Islam never taught that popularity equals righteousness. Once you accept that approval will always be inconsistent, something changes inside you. You stop taking things so personally. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop reshaping your values to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. You become calmer, not because people suddenly changed, but because you did. This does not mean you become rude, careless, or indifferent. No. You still have good character, you still speak gently, you still consider others. But you no longer hand them authority over your peace. You act from principle, not from fear. You choose integrity over applause, and that choice brings a quiet strength into your life. Some people will accuse you of becoming distant or cold when you stop chasing approval. In reality, you have become grounded. You are no longer reactive. You are no longer living to be validated. And that threatens those who were comfortable benefiting from your insecurity. Let them feel uncomfortable. Your responsibility is not to maintain other people's comfort at the expense of your conscience. When Allah is pleased with you, it is enough. His pleasure does not change with moods. His approval is not conditional on you being useful to others. His mercy does not disappear when you set a boundary. When you anchor your worth to Him, you gain something priceless: stability. The world can be loud, critical, and unpredictable, but your heart remains steady. So remind yourself often, people's approval is a moving target. Do not chase what cannot be caught. Walk your path with sincerity, trust Allah with the outcomes, and let people think what they want. Peace does not come from being liked, it comes from being aligned. My brothers and sisters, many people believe they are good because they always say yes. Yes to requests, yes to demands, yes to expectations that drain them. They think this makes them kind, generous, and pleasing to Allah. But let me be very clear, constantly saying yes is not righteousness. Very often it is fear disguised as goodness, fear of upsetting people, fear of being rejected, fear of being labeled selfish or unhelpful. Every time you say yes when you should have said no, something is taken from you. Your time is taken, your energy is taken, your focus is taken. And slowly, without realizing it, your peace is taken. People then wonder why they feel resentful, irritable, and empty. It is because they have been giving from a place of pressure, not sincerity. Islam does not teach you to abandon yourself. Islam teaches balance. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was the most generous of people, yet he did not say yes to everything. He prioritized, he rested, he withdrew. He understood that the body has rights, the soul has rights, the family has rights, and Allah has rights. When you ignore this balance, you do not become more pious. You become burnt out. Many people are not exhausted because they are doing too much good. They are exhausted because they are doing too much that is not required of them. They carry responsibilities that Allah never placed on their shoulders. They take on emotional labor that does not belong to them. They solve problems that are not theirs to solve. And then they feel guilty for feeling tired. This guilt keeps them trapped. Understand this clearly. When you say yes to everything, you teach people that your time is always available, your boundaries are flexible, and your needs are optional. Over time, people stop asking respectfully and start expecting automatically. They no longer see your effort as kindness, they see it as entitlement. And when you finally say no, they react strongly, not because you are wrong, but because you change the pattern. This is why saying no feels so uncomfortable for many people. It exposes the unhealthy dynamics that were already there. It reveals who respected you and who was only benefiting from your compliance. This discomfort is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is a sign that you are correcting something that was out of balance. Some people think saying no means being harsh or arrogant. That is false. You can say no with gentleness. You can say no with respect. You can say no without explaining your entire life. Islam does not require you to justify every decision. You are allowed to protect your capacity. You are allowed to preserve your strength. A sincere no is better than a resentful yes. Look at how resentment develops. You agree to something you do not want to do. You push yourself past your limits. You smile on the outside while feeling heavy on the inside. Over time, that heaviness turns into frustration. That frustration turns into bitterness. And suddenly, you find yourself angry at people who never forced you in the first place. This internal conflict damages relationships and damages the heart. Allah loves sincerity. When you say yes out of pressure, your intention is compromised. When you give while feeling forced, the act loses its spiritual weight. You may still get credit for the action, but you lose the peace that should have come with it. Islam is not about quantity alone. It is about intention, balance, and consciousness of Allah. Some people fear that if they say no, they will lose people. Let me tell you the truth. You may lose some people, but ask yourself honestly, what kind of people are those? People who only stay when you overextend yourself are not connected to you, they are connected to what you provide. When you stop providing, they disappear. That loss is not a tragedy, it is clarity. Those who truly care about you will understand boundaries, even if they are disappointed. They may not always like your decisions, but they will respect them. And respect is far more valuable than approval. Approval is temporary, respect endures. Saying no also teaches you self-respect. It reminds you that your time is valuable, that your health matters, that your relationship with Allah cannot be sacrificed for endless obligations. When you protect your energy, you show gratitude for the blessings Allah has given you. Wasting yourself is not humility. Preserving yourself for what truly matters is wisdom. Remember, you will be questioned about your prayers, your sincerity, your character, and your responsibilities. You will not be questioned about how many people you kept happy at the expense of yourself. On the day of judgment, excuses like, "I didn't want to disappoint them," will not carry weight if they led you away from balance, truth, or obedience. When you start saying no where it is necessary, you create space in your life. Space to worship with focus, space to rest without guilt, space to serve with sincerity, space to be present with your family, space to breathe. That space is not laziness, it is mercy. So understand this lesson deeply. Every yes has a cost. Spend it wisely. Say yes to what brings you closer to Allah. Say yes to what aligns with your capacity, and have the courage to say no to what drains you without benefit. Because when you say yes to everyone, you are often saying no to the very peace Allah wants for you. My brothers and sisters, one of the deepest fears many people carry is the fear of being alone. They fear silence, they fear distance, they fear what will happen if certain people are no longer in their lives. Because of this fear, they tolerate what slowly breaks them. They stay in environments that suffocate their values. They accept treatment that drains their dignity. And they call this patience, when in reality, it is fear wearing a religious mask. Let us be clear from the beginning. Being alone is not the same as being lost. Being alone is not a failure. Being alone does not mean Allah has abandoned you. Sometimes being alone is Allah protecting you. Protecting your heart from constant pressure, protecting your faith from slow compromise, protecting your mind from endless noise. Many people remain surrounded by others yet feel deeply lonely inside. Why? Because they are not seen for who they truly are. They are valued only for what they provide, how they agree, how they stay quiet, or how they comply. That kind of company does not nourish the soul. It slowly starves it. You laugh with people, but you cannot breathe. You speak, but you cannot be honest. You belong, but only conditionally. Pressure-filled company demands that you shrink, that you soften your beliefs, that you remain silent when you should speak, that you speak when you should remain silent. It asks you to become a version of yourself that fits comfortably into other people's expectations. Over time, you lose clarity. You begin to doubt your own instincts. You start questioning what is right and wrong, not based on truth, but based on what keeps the peace. Islam does not require you to remain in spaces that constantly pull you away from sincerity. The Prophet, peace be upon him, would withdraw. He would spend time alone in reflection. He understood that solitude strengthens the heart when it is intentional. Loneliness becomes harmful only when it disconnects you from Allah. But solitude that brings you closer to Him is not loneliness at all. It is purification. Some people fear that choosing integrity will cost them relationships. Sometimes it does. When you stop tolerating manipulation, guilt, or disrespect, those who benefited from your silence will feel exposed. They may call you difficult. They may accuse you of changing. They may say you are isolating yourself, but what they often mean is that you are no longer easy to control. Integrity has a price, but so does compromise. The difference is that integrity strengthens you while compromise weakens you. When you choose integrity, you may walk alone for a while, but you walk with your head up and your heart intact. When you choose company at the cost of your values, you may be surrounded by people, but you feel heavy, restless, and disconnected from yourself. There is a quiet strength in standing alone when necessary. It teaches you reliance on Allah rather than reliance on people. It teaches you to sit with your thoughts, examine your intentions, and rebuild your inner world without interference. Many people avoid solitude because it exposes the truths they have been running from, but healing often begins in that quiet space. Understand this: not everyone who walks away from you is a loss. Some departures are relief. Some endings are protection. Allah removes certain people not to punish you, but to free you. When you insist on holding on to everyone, you may be holding on to what is harming you. Trust that Allah knows what your heart needs better than you do. Company that pressures you to compromise your faith, your conscience, or your well-being is not worth keeping. No relationship should require you to constantly betray yourself. Good company encourages growth, accountability, and sincerity. It does not suffocate you. It does not make you feel small. It does not require you to pretend. Some people stay in harmful company because they fear what others will say. They fear gossip, misunderstanding, or judgment. But remember this: people will talk whether you stay or leave. If you are criticized either way, choose the path that preserves your relationship with Allah and your self-respect. Loneliness with integrity creates space for Allah to fill your heart. It sharpens your clarity. It rebuilds your strength. And in time, it attracts the right people into your life. People who respect your boundaries and honor your values. Rushed companionship often leads to regret. Patient solitude often leads to wisdom. So do not rush to fill every empty space with people. Not every silence needs noise. Not every gap needs a presence. Sometimes the most powerful decision you can make is to step back, stand alone, and let Allah realign your life. Because company that costs you your peace is too expensive, and loneliness that preserves your integrity is a blessing in disguise. My brothers and sisters, one of the most powerful ways people control others is through guilt. It is subtle, emotional, and often disguised as concern, love, or religious advice. Many people live under constant guilt, not because they are disobeying Allah, but because they are being emotionally pressured by those around them. This guilt drains the heart and confuses the conscience, making it difficult to distinguish between what Allah wants and what people want. Not all guilt is bad. This is important to understand. Guilt that brings you back to Allah, that corrects your behavior, that reminds you of your obligations and shortcomings is healthy and necessary. It is a mercy. But guilt that pushes you to sacrifice your peace, your boundaries, or your values to keep others comfortable is not from Allah. That type of guilt is manipulation, even if it comes from someone close to you. Many people use guilt intentionally. Others use it unconsciously. They remind you of favors they did for you. They bring up past sacrifices. They say things like, after everything I've done for you, or if you really cared, you would do this. These statements are not requests. They are emotional pressure. Their goal is not understanding. Their goal is compliance. Some people even use religion to apply guilt. They quote verses or reminders selectively to make you feel sinful for saying no, for resting, or for choosing yourself. This is extremely dangerous. Islam does not teach blind obedience to people. Islam teaches obedience to Allah. Anyone who uses religion to control you without compassion, balance, and sincerity is misusing it. Ask yourself this powerful question before giving in to guilt. Am I doing this because Allah is pleased with it, or because I am afraid of disappointing someone? This question alone can expose the difference between sincere obedience and emotional coercion. If your decision is driven by fear of people rather than consciousness of Allah, pause. That pause can save your peace. Guilt becomes harmful when it disconnects you from your own moral clarity. You begin doubting your right to rest. You question your right to say no. You feel selfish for setting boundaries. Over time, you stop trusting your own judgment. This makes you easier to control, easier to exhaust, and easier to silence. Understand this clearly. You are not responsible for managing other people's emotions. You are not obligated to fix their disappointment. You are not sinful for choosing what is healthy for you when it does not contradict Allah's commands. Many people confuse responsibility with guilt. Responsibility is doing what is required of you. Guilt is feeling bad for not doing what others expect from you. Some people will react strongly when guilt stops working on you. They may accuse you of becoming cold, ungrateful, or distant. They may increase the pressure, hoping you will break. This is often a sign that guilt was their primary tool of control. Do not mistake their discomfort for your wrongdoing. Growth often disrupts unhealthy dynamics. Islam encourages kindness, but it does not encourage self-destruction. The Prophet, peace be upon him, never taught people to ignore their limits. He acknowledged human capacity. He allowed ease. He discouraged excess. Anyone who constantly makes you feel guilty for not overextending yourself is not guiding you closer to Allah. They are pulling you away from balance. One of the hardest but most freeing things you can learn is to sit with guilt without obeying it. Not all guilt deserves action. Sometimes guilt needs reflection, not reaction. Ask yourself, is this guilt correcting me or controlling me? Is it pushing me toward Allah or toward resentment? Is it producing peace or pressure? When you stop obeying false guilt, you begin to act with clarity. Your yes becomes sincere. Your no becomes firm. You give when you are able, not when you are forced. And this sincerity brings barakah back into your actions. Allah loves actions that come from a willing heart, not from emotional exhaustion. Remember, Allah is just. He does not burden a soul beyond its capacity. He does not expect you to carry the emotional weight of everyone around you. He knows your intentions even when people misinterpret them. Trust His knowledge over people's opinions. So do not allow guilt to rule your life blindly. Examine it, question it, filter it through knowledge and sincerity. Keep the guilt that brings you closer to Allah and release the guilt that chains you to people's expectations. When guilt loses its power over you, peace begins to return and your relationship with Allah becomes clearer, lighter, and more sincere. My brothers and sisters, one of the hardest lessons to grasp in this life is the power of stepping back. We live in a world that praises constant activity, immediate responses, and endless explanations. We are told to always defend ourselves, always justify our actions, always participate in every conversation. But Islam teaches us something different. Sometimes the most powerful act of faith is not speaking. Sometimes the most powerful act of obedience is choosing silence and withdrawal when necessary. Let me explain. Not every argument requires your response. Not every misunderstanding deserves clarification. Not every demand deserves your energy. You do not need to explain every decision you make, nor do you need to defend yourself to everyone who questions you. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was wise in his speech. He chose when to speak and when to remain silent. He withdrew when speaking would cause harm or when it would be wasted. His silence was not weakness, it was strength guided by wisdom. Many people feel compelled to react to everything immediately. Someone criticizes them and they must defend themselves. Someone judges them and they must explain. Someone challenges them and they must argue. But this constant reaction wears the soul thin. It distracts from worship, from reflection, from the growth of the heart. It allows other people's expectations, opinions, and anger to control your energy. Your time and your peace become dictated by those who often do not deserve it. Withdrawal and silence are not signs of cowardice or indifference. They are acts of self-preservation and devotion. When you step back from unnecessary conflict, you give yourself the space to act wisely, to think clearly, and to maintain composure. You protect your heart from being consumed by matters that have no lasting benefit. You are practicing patience and self-control, two qualities beloved in the sight of Allah. Consider this carefully. Responding to everything, explaining everything, and seeking approval from everyone is exhausting. It is a form of enslavement. It teaches you to measure your worth based on reactions, not intentions. It forces you to live for people rather than for Allah. But when you withdraw and remain silent where it is appropriate, you reclaim your power, you reclaim your inner space. You become free to act from clarity rather than emotion, from wisdom rather than impulse. There is also a spiritual dimension to withdrawal. Sometimes Allah tests our faith by isolating us from distraction or overwhelming noise. Silence allows your heart to speak to Allah more clearly. Withdrawal allows reflection and self-assessment. Solitude becomes a time of worship when your focus shifts from people's expectations to Allah's pleasure. Many people mistake silence for passivity, but it can be the most active form of devotion when guided by consciousness of Allah. We must also understand that some people thrive on conflict, drama, and distraction. They pull others into arguments not because they seek truth, but because they enjoy controlling the conversation. Responding to every provocation feeds their power. Walking away and maintaining silence does not mean weakness. It removes their control and protects your peace. It is a subtle but profound act of strength and wisdom. This does not mean you abandon responsibilities or ignore injustice. Islam teaches that action is necessary when required, but discernment is key. You must choose your battles carefully. Not every insult needs a response. Not every criticism demands explanation. Not every challenge is worth your energy. Your heart is a trust from Allah, and you are accountable for how you preserve it. Protecting it is an act of worship. Silence and withdrawal also preserve your dignity. When you respond to everything, you often lower yourself to the level of those who attack, manipulate, or pressure you. When you step back, you maintain composure and honor. Your presence becomes measured, purposeful, and respected. You are no longer at the mercy of others' whims or emotions. Many people fear that withdrawing or remaining silent will make them appear weak, indifferent, or unkind. But let me remind you, the intention behind the action matters. If your silence is for selfishness, it may indeed be harmful. But if your silence is to protect your heart, maintain your integrity, and preserve your focus on Allah, it becomes worship. It becomes an act of devotion. It becomes an expression of wisdom. Brothers and sisters, the world is loud. People demand attention, opinions, gossip, criticism, and pressure constantly surround us. But your peace, your clarity, and your relationship with Allah are far more important than the fleeting satisfaction of responding to every voice. When you choose silence and withdrawal at the right times, you reclaim control over your life, you protect your heart, and you engage with the world only when it aligns with your values and Allah's guidance. So remind yourself, not every conflict deserves your energy, not every comment deserves a response, and not every expectation deserves compliance. Sometimes stepping back, choosing silence and withdrawing is not avoidance. It is a form of worship. It is a method of preserving your soul, maintaining your integrity, and drawing closer to Allah. The more you practice this, the more your heart finds rest, and the more your life gains clarity, strength, and purpose. My brothers and sisters, this is the most important lesson of all, the lesson that ties everything together. If you take nothing else from this discussion, understand this: the more you chase people, the further peace runs from you. The more you live to please others, the more exhaustion, frustration, and anxiety fill your life. But the moment you consciously choose Allah above all, peace follows automatically. Not immediately always, but inevitably, steadily, and deeply. Think carefully about your life. How often have you changed yourself, acted against your own wishes, or bent over backwards to gain someone's approval? You may have received temporary satisfaction from a compliment or gratitude, but it never lasted. That approval was conditional. It depended on circumstances, moods, and perception. And because it was conditional, your peace was conditional as well. Your tranquility depended on others, not Allah. And that is why your heart was never still. When you choose Allah, everything shifts. You stop looking at life as a series of tests from people, and you begin to see it as a journey of sincerity, obedience, and connection to your Creator. Your priorities change. You start measuring actions not by human applause but by divine approval. You start asking yourself, will Allah be pleased with this choice? Will He accept this effort? Will this action increase my closeness to Him? This perspective brings freedom. It brings stability. It brings a peace that cannot be shaken by opinions, criticism, or gossip. Choosing Allah is not always easy. It often comes with sacrifices. You may disappoint family members, friends, colleagues, or peers. You may face criticism, isolation, or misunderstanding. But these are temporary. The discomfort of displeasing people is fleeting. The serenity of pleasing Allah is eternal. On the day of judgment, you will not be asked whether your neighbor, friend, or boss was happy with you. You will be asked whether you obeyed Allah, upheld truth, and protected your heart from what was forbidden. Many people fear this choice because it requires courage. It requires standing firm even when the world pressures you to conform. It requires rejecting habits, relationships, or patterns that harm your peace. It requires saying no when everyone else says yes. But courage in the path of Allah is never wasted. It builds strength, clarity, and conviction. And every act of courage anchored in Allah brings a quiet, unseen reward, peace in your heart. Consider the nature of peace. True peace is not the absence of conflict or discomfort. It is the alignment of your heart with your purpose. It is knowing that your choices, actions, and intentions are in harmony with divine guidance. You may still face challenges. You may still encounter difficult people, you may still experience trials, but when Allah is your focus, you face them from a place of calm, not desperation. You respond with wisdom, not fear. You act with patience, not panic. Peace also manifests in your relationships. When you stop performing for people, their influence over your emotions decreases. When your focus is Allah, you can interact with others honestly and sincerely, without manipulation, pretense, or fear. Boundaries become easier to maintain. Compassion becomes freer and purer because it is given willingly, not out of guilt or obligation. Love is no longer transactional, it is authentic, and this authenticity transforms your entire life. Many people have not experienced this kind of peace because they confuse compliance with love or approval with acceptance. They bend themselves to satisfy others, and when approval is withheld, they feel rejected. But Allah's pleasure is unwavering. It does not fluctuate with mood, convenience, or benefit. It is constant. And when your heart anchors to this certainty, you experience a stability that cannot be destroyed by worldly turbulence. Let me emphasize this clearly. When you choose Allah, you do not need to control everyone, fix everyone, or please everyone. You do not need endless explanations or constant validation. Your sense of worth is no longer dependent on human opinions. You act with sincerity. You set boundaries with wisdom. You serve, speak, and interact with purpose. And because your actions are rooted in divine consciousness, your heart is no longer restless. Peace follows naturally, almost effortlessly. This choice also transforms trials. When people criticize, misunderstand, or oppose you, you no longer take it personally. You no longer panic or over-explain. You remain grounded because your anchor is not in fleeting human approval, but in Allah's wisdom, mercy, and guidance. What others say may hurt, but it cannot destabilize you. Your serenity is protected. Your clarity is intact. Your path is steady. Some may argue that this path isolates you, that it makes life harder. But isolation is often the gift you need. It removes distractions, false obligations, and draining relationships. It creates space for sincerity, reflection, and growth. True friends, supporters, and companions will remain those who honor your values, respect your boundaries, and encourage your faith. The rest are tests, not burdens. Remember this truth deeply. People's approval is temporary, fluctuating, and unreliable. Allah's pleasure is eternal, unchanging, and infinitely rewarding. When you make His approval your priority, everything else falls into perspective. The heart becomes light, decisions become clear, energy is restored, the soul breathes. And the peace that you have been desperately seeking from the world suddenly becomes present within you. So commit yourself to this choice today. Choose Allah above all. Let Him be the measure of your actions, the focus of your intentions, and the anchor of your heart. Trust in Him. Act with sincerity. Withdraw when necessary. Uphold boundaries and know that true peace, the kind that cannot be shaken by human opinion or circumstance, will follow you naturally, continuously, and abundantly. My brothers and sisters, this is the ultimate liberation. Freedom from people's approval, freedom from constant fear, freedom from guilt, and freedom from the endless struggle to satisfy everyone. Choose Allah and peace will not be distant, it will not be temporary, it will not be conditional, it will be present, deep and enduring in your heart, in your mind, and in your life. My brothers and sisters, let me remind you of what we have discussed today. Life will never be free from people's expectations, criticism, or demands. The world will always have opinions, and not all of them will be kind or fair. But your responsibility is not to manage the world. Your responsibility is to live with sincerity, integrity, and devotion to Allah. You were not created to please everyone. Approval is fleeting. Guilt can be used against you, and constant compromise destroys the heart. Saying no when necessary, withdrawing when required, and choosing your boundaries wisely are not acts of selfishness, they are acts of faith. Loneliness with integrity is better than company that pressures you, and silence can be a form of worship. And above all, when you choose Allah, peace follows automatically. Your heart finds rest, your mind finds clarity, your actions gain sincerity. Your life begins to align with purpose, and the exhaustion of living for everyone else begins to fade. Trust Him, focus on Him, let His pleasure be your guide, and everything else will find its proper place. So I leave you with this final truth. You are free the moment you stop living for people and start living for Allah. Every no spoken wisely, every boundary respected, every moment of silence and reflection brings you closer to true peace. Guard your heart, protect your time, and prioritize your connection with Allah above all else. May Allah grant us the strength to act with sincerity, the courage to set boundaries, and the wisdom to seek His pleasure above all else. And may He fill our hearts with a peace that no one can take away. Ameen.